Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today let's do our check-in video for the month of August. So, in terms of what I've been watching, I've got Aquaman #1, the first movie I watched. I watched it on a whim, and generally speaking, I did enjoy the movie, but I forgot that Amber Heard was in it, and then it kind of soured the experience a little bit because I really enjoyed the Mira character. But then I remember that Amber Heard is the person playing her, and it kind of makes the situation worse, right? It is less enjoyable because of that. But it is what it is. Everything else was pretty good. I enjoy the way that Arthur Curry is represented by Jason Momoa. Although I do think that it is better for him to move on to playing Lobo, being kind of a less common occurrence in the new DC universe, and getting a new character, or a new player, or a new actor to be the character of Arthur Curry, right? So, yeah, overall, pretty good movie. Then I watched Oppenheimer, and this movie is amazing. I didn't make a separate review for it because, one, I didn't feel like it, in the sense that I didn't want to kind of accidentally help out or go against the strikes that are going on right now. So I decided not to talk about it. But now that I am doing it here, and I do apologize for the construction noises if you guys can hear them, this movie is amazing. It's really, really good. It is about 3 hours long. I think it's almost exactly 3 hours long. And it is generally a great movie. It's really, really fun. It's really enjoyable. It's not necessarily an action-filled kind of story. It's not necessarily a thriller either. It's just really enthralling or really engaging to watch this guy's life kind of like come together but also fall apart at the same time, because the story is told in this really interesting kind of like dynamic way, I guess. Like there's this kind of device used, which is that we get to see old Oppenheimer, talking to these people that are kind of asking him questions. There's this like secret hearing about Oppenheimer's involvement with the war effort. And as he's talking, he's talking physically. He's telling them about it. But then we transition into seeing a young version of Oppenheimer doing the things that he said he was doing. And it's really, really good. I like how this is set up. There's also a really interesting device here where everything that's in color is done by it's subjective. It's like things that we don't know objectively happen, or that hasn't been counted objectively from like a perspective of someone, where the stuff in black and white is completely factual, like it is based on writings of someone, right? And so you can kind of say that the dramatized version is the stuff in color, and the stuff that is factual, kind of documentary style, is the stuff that is in black and white. And I really enjoy that device. I do want to say something. I don't necessarily think of myself as a prudish person, and I do enjoy fan service in my content, right? But there was kind of 2 sex scenes, I guess, or 1.5 sex scenes that happened in this movie. And even though I'm not necessarily against them, they were a little bit awkward. Like the way that they were framed and the way that they were set up felt awkward. And I think it is because they didn't give you anything at face value. Like they didn't add anything at face value. However, if you think about them as a way to represent the stuff that Oppenheimer is going through, and the stuff that leads to Oppenheimer being the way he is after the death of the character that's involved with him in those scenes, then a lot of things can be extrapolated from it. And at that point, it does feel like they're necessary. But to me, it did almost feel like Christopher Nolan just wanted to have these scenes there to kind of make the movie sexier than what it really is. And it doesn't necessarily harm the movie, but I did have a conversation with my roommates, his girlfriend, and my younger sister about the movie and about that after we watched it. And we did kind of come to the consensus that like it doesn't necessarily hinder the movie, but it doesn't necessarily add anything to it. But it does provide some extra characterization if you kind of look at it from a more metaphorical sense. So overall, it was pretty interesting. That was kind of really the only talking point I had, because everything else is pretty cut and dry. It is a really great movie. It's really, really interesting. It does not tell you to support Oppenheimer or the fact that the US bombed a country and mostly hurt civilians. It doesn't condone any of that. In fact, it actually shows that in a pretty negative light. So the movie is just about a person that is a very important person to our modern life, to our modern history, and it doesn't tell you he's good, and it doesn't necessarily tell you he's bad either. Like, I do think that there's a certain level of like association that you might have with a character in the sense that he is the protagonist and people are kind of trained to side with the protagonist of stories. But it is very clear that he's not a good person. He's at best a complex person. And we do see that initially he is very much driven by ego. And then eventually, after the bomb is dropped, he realizes the massive weight of his success and what it means and the horrors that has wrought. And then he becomes like an introspective, kind of like possibly good person, right? And so it's really, really interesting. Ultimately it's bad, and like he's bad and the things that he made are bad, but he made them and they happened, and so now we have to contend with the issues of them being released onto the world. So really, really interesting movie. I really, really enjoyed my time with it. Sadly, I did not get to see Barbie, and I might see it next week, but I'm not really sure. I was never interested in the Barbie movie, and based on reviews, I don't think it's going to be for me, so there's no point in me wasting my time watching it. But I also don't want to just do that because it is such a high-profile kind of movie, and because I don't want to be labeled incorrectly just because I chose not to watch a movie that I'm not interested in, right? So I'm not really sure how to deal with that. I think I'm just not going to watch the movie until it comes to streaming, and then I'll watch it then. But I don't have plans to go watch it in the theater. So yeah, then I continue to watch episodes of My Adventures with Superman, and they're really, really fun. I really enjoy them. Episode 7, which is the most recent episode, was about Mixie and this kind of council of lanes. It was pretty interesting. I think the conflict of this episode was a little bit too complex for a 20-minute episode. I feel like it could have been drawn out a little bit more, and all it did was mostly just set up the fact that, hey, Clark is not necessarily inherently good, and he has to try to be good, and Lois now learns that, and this kind of probably leads into the fact that the way that the story happens with Clark and Jor-El hasn't been explored yet. And so that's probably going to be explored later. And it'll probably be with Jor-El being some sort of warrior character and kind of wanting to get Clark to join that, and him trying to have to kind of step back on that. So I think it's going to be interesting. It'll be fun. But there really isn't too much to say here. I also watched a few episodes of Smallville. After watching episode 5 or 6, I can't remember exactly what episode it was, I felt like I wanted to get more Superman in my life, more Superman stories in my life. And Hulu has every season of Smallville available with ads. And so I watched it that way. And I watched a few episodes, and I'm really enjoying it. I just haven't watched any in a few days because I haven't had time to do so. But it's really, really good. It's really enjoyable. And for an early 2000s type show, I think actually it's late 90s, it's pretty great. It has a lot of stuff going for it. I enjoy it. The CGI is pretty garbage, but at the same time, they do a lot of practical effects, and they work well. I mean, as long as you understand that it's not going to be on par with modern shows, you're going to be fine with it. The storytelling is pretty good. The characters are pretty good, and the story is a lot hornier than you would expect, actually. Like, I thought it'd be pretty wholesome. I had never heard anyone talk about it. I remember watching a few episodes growing up because I had a friend whose dad was really into the show, and so I remember watching episodes of it, from time to time. But I don't remember them being so horny. Like there's scenes where girls are changing. There's scenes where Clark sees girls naked or like in their underwear. There's like situations where they're in showers, and I don't mind. I just didn't expect it, but it is still a CW show, and CW shows do have a lot of that. I just think I didn't remember seeing that much of it in the superhero side of things. But I guess the Green Arrow show did have some moments like that, especially with Felicity. So overall, I guess it is to be expected, especially because like other shows, they'd have a lot more of that. But I don't know, I just wasn't expecting it. It didn't really hurt my enjoyment. I actually found it to be fine, but I just wasn't expecting it. And overall, really good stuff there. Smallville is great. I really recommend you guys check it out if you guys haven't already. So yeah, that's it for that. Let's move on to novels. So first we have Tarzan number 4. I've read half of this, and this is about the son of Tarzan. It's about Korak the killer, or Korak, which means the killer, and it's a pretty good novel. I really enjoy it. It does feel like it retreads the original Tarzan story, and it does so while making changes and while making it fresh and exciting by making some small fundamental changes to make the trajectory of Korak's story significantly different from Tarzan. So Tarzan grows as an ape and then becomes a man later. Korak grows as a man and then becomes an ape later. And so this changes fundamentally how Korak acts. And also because he's a young boy and he's going through puberty as he begins this, his kind of situation, his emotional situation changes rather drastically. And there's many moments where he feels spurred. He feels like his gentle kind of approachments to other people and to other animals are harshly rebuffed, and this causes strange kind of serious anger in this child, and so that's why he starts going into that path of the killer, and it's really, really good. It also introduces us to a wild girl who is named Miriam, who's actually a French girl, but I think everyone thinks that she's Arabic because they're in this kind of region where there's an Arabic guy, and she's under his care. And Miriam is the partner to Korak the same way Jane is to Tarzan. And because Korak becomes an ape later, his female partner also has to be this kind of like ape person. And so Miriam manages to fit into this mold, and I really like it. I'm curious to see what happens later on in the story, how Korak and his father and Jane and Miriam are all going to interact, because I think it'll be really, really good. So overall, really enjoyed that first half of Tarzan there. So really good stuff. Then I read this book here, Shadow Rising, which is the Wheel of Time book 4, and it was a great book. I really, really enjoy this novel a lot. It's not my favorite. It's definitely like top 2. I just don't know if this one is better or The Fires of Heaven, which I also ended up reading. I don't have the book with me. I left it in my car and I didn't feel like getting it. But I did read 2 Wheel of Time novels this month rather quickly. And the second one I read kind of quickly because I found some clips for certain chapters online on YouTube. And I initially didn't feel like reading them, but then I remembered that I had previously read or listened to part of the story being read, and I really enjoyed it. The 2 people that read this are really, really good. So I watched some of those clips, which allowed me to move faster through the story because I could multitask while doing that. And so that helped me get through The Fires of Heaven better. Or faster, not necessarily better, because I think I remember more when I read myself than when I listen. But it makes me think that the audiobooks are really, really good resources, and I do want to chase some down. However, I don't necessarily want to buy them from Audible. 1, the prices are not my favorite, and 2, I'd rather have a separate thing in case my my audiobooks, and I'm not really sure if they even sell like portable versions of the audiobooks, because the only way that I know of audiobooks currently is as CD cases, which are old, or as digital ebooks. But I remember when I was in middle school and in high school, I remember renting out these little, like, I don't know what they're called, like little Walkmans, I guess, that were audiobooks, and you just plugged in your earphones to it and it would play. And I remember renting these, and I remember that I enjoyed them, but I don't know if those things still exist, because it does make sense for those to be phased out if you can just have an app on your phone that lets you do the same thing. But I would rather have a version like that than having to buy them on Audible. I just don't like Audible that much, and I don't want to give Amazon more money than I already have to due to convenience, right? So, but The Wheel of Time, both of the books that I read are great. I love them so much. They're really, really good. My ranking previously was book 3, The Dragon Reborn, then book 1, then book 2. Right now, I think it's probably book 5 because of recency bias. Then book 3, then book 4, then book 1, and then book 2. So Great Hunt is really, really good. I remember it very vividly, but out of all of them, I think it's the least interesting one, since it is just kind of like this long trek from one part of the country to the other, right? So, yeah, but something happens in the Fires of Heaven that really didn't feel like it was justified yet, or that it didn't feel like it was, like it didn't give me the impact that I was expecting, even though it is a very meaningful kind of character situation, right? So, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'll talk about it when I do the spoiler reviews, but that will be significantly later on in this month. So, yeah, that's it for that. Let me remember if I have any other novels that I read. No, currently I don't have any other novels that I read. So, yeah, that's it for the novels. I have not read any manga, so this last section will be comic books, and then we'll move on from the check-in video. So, they're kind of out of order. So let's start with the collected edition. We have Blue Beetle. I already did a review for this. I actually reviewed it yesterday as the time of this going up. So go check it out. It's a really, really good review. I recommend you guys only watch up to the premise of the story if you're not interested in spoilers. The first portion is not spoilers, so only watch that part. But I recommend you guys read this because it's really, really good. Then we have Conan #1, and associated with this is also Conan #0, and I did a review for these as well. They're really, really good stories. I really enjoyed them. Jim Zub did a good job with that. We also have Red Sonja 0 and 1 here. Thorin Grönbach also did a good job with these, but these are a little bit less exciting than Conan, but still pretty good if you like sword and sorcery, right? So, yeah, then we have Sacrificers #1. This is a sci-fantasy story by Rick Remender. I enjoy his works quite a bit, although I've never finished any of his works yet, so maybe this one will be the one I finish. So, yeah, this is good. It's about these people that live in this high society kingdom kind of thing, and one day they have to go out to collect sacrifices once a year in order to do some sort of ritual. And we follow one of these people that's a sacrificer. That's that blue bird person on the cover. So, yeah, we don't know anything about the story yet, but I'm very excited about it. I enjoy the artwork. So, yeah, then we have Barbarella #5. This finishes the story, and thank God. And honestly, the only good things that came out of this are the covers. I think I have all of them in the same kind of style, so that's cool. But if I don't, I'll be a little bit disappointed. I don't remember. And I think I'm going to keep that, but I'm not going to get any more Barbarella series by this creative team. So, there you go. And then we have Queens of the Lost World, and the artwork here felt a little bit less good than the first one, but the story was still pretty enjoyable, although it is pretty unclear because it hops around a lot between all of the different places that we're visiting with the characters. So I'm not too sure about that one either. Then we have Heatseeker #2. I don't like this cover. I think In Hyuk Lee is much better at doing superheroes and streetwear than he is about doing kind of sexy characters like this. And I didn't really like this, but I didn't bother with finding a different cover that I did like, because ultimately I'm not necessarily into the comic books because of the covers. I'm interested in the story, and the story here is pretty is pretty good, and is pretty enjoyable and actually really good. That's what I wanted to say initially. So sorry it took me so long to get there, but it continues off from the last point. It involves a fake out death, and it involves a situation that's rather crazy that leads into a really good cliffhanger. So overall, really good stuff there with the comic books this month, and that's it for our check-in video. Let me know what you guys have been reading down below, and thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.